Hi everyone, welcome back to the Modern React 19 series chapter 9. In this chapter, we are going to learn one of the most important concepts when building real world React applications, routing and navigation. So far, most of our examples have essentially been a single screen, but a real application might have a home page, a product page, a product details page, a dashboard, settings, orders, and authentication search screens. The question is, how do we manage all these different views inside a React application? So that's where React Router comes in. In this chapter, we will learn routes, links, programmatic navigation, dynamic route parameters, query parameters, nested routes, layouts, protected routes, and 404 handling. And as usual, we won't just learn the syntax. I will show you the actual code, explain why we are writing it, and then we will see the result directly in the browser. So let's move to the next slide. Why do we need routing? So let's start with the problem routing actually solves. Imagine that we are building an e-commerce application. We might have a home page uh, and the product might be at slash products, and a particular product might be available at slash product slash id. Maybe we call it a 101, for example. We might also have a dashboard at slash dashboard. We need some mechanism that looks at the current url and decide which react component should be displayed. That's the basic job of a router. The mental model is very simple. URL changes, the router finds a matching route, and React renders the corresponding component. And because this is a SPA, and we can change views without forcing the browsers to completely reload the application. So now I will take you to next slide. So let's install the router. So we have a command here. I already have copied. I will open the terminal. Set execution, and now hopefully it will run. So I have installed router, and to confirm it, let's check our package.json file. So you see line number 20. uh, yeah, line number 15. So it has been installed, and now I already have created some code already. So I had previously installed this uh, router but uninstalled it, so I can tell you in the video, but here I have already put some code which I will explain you thoroughly. So once the installation completes, we can import the routing APIs into our application. So look on the top in app.tsx. We are importing browser router, routes, and route. These three APIs from the foundation uh, of our routing setup. Let's now understand exactly what each one does. So you remember I installed with npm install React Router DOM. So uh, I will take you to my next slide. So one by one I explain. So this browser route provides the routing context to our React application. In simple terms, it allows React router to listen to the browser URL and manage navigation. Inside it, we have routes. Let's look in the code. Line number 71, you see how I defined routes and inside it route. So routes act as the container for our route definition, and finally we have individual route components. For example, here we are saying if the path is just slash a, render the home component, and if the path is products, render the products component. So this line path is equal to slash products defines the URL pattern, and element is equal to uh, products tells React what should be rendered when that URL matches. This is the fundamental relationship between a URL and a React component. So let's move to next slide. Okay, so creating your first routes. So I have already defined three basic pages: home, about, and products. Sorry, home, product details, login, dashboard, 404 as well. So each route has two important pieces of information. First, we have the path, that's the URL, and second, we have the element. So that's the React component we want to display. So when the user builds its products, React router matches the URL and renders the product component. So this gives our application a very clean structure. The URL represents where the user is, and the route determines which UI should be displayed. So move to next slide. Let's talk about navigation with link. So we know how to define routes, but how does the user actually move between those routes? So that's where link comes in. Here we are importing link from React Router, and instead of using a traditional anchor tag like href is equal to products, we use link is equal to link, and we mention to is equal to, and we pass the this one URL, link to products, link to dashboard, and so on. So the important difference is that React Router can perform client-side navigation. We stay inside our React application instead of forcing the browser to perform a complete page reload. So whenever navigation is initiated by the user, for example, clicking a menu item or product link is usually the appreciated choice. So a simple rule, uh, link is for navigation initiated by the user. So next point is useNavigate. So now let's understand what is this useNavigate. So by navigation, so I would say navigation isn't always triggered by a link. Sometimes navigation needs to happen as a result of application logic. For example, imagine a login form. The users submit their credential. We call the authentication API. If authentication succeeds, we want to redirect the user to the dashboard. So that's where use navigate becomes useful. First, we call use navigate and store the return function in navigate. Then, after our business logic succeeds, we can simply call navigate, for example, dashboard. So the distinction is use link when the user clicks the navigation element, use navigate when navigation is triggered programmatically by application logic. So let's look on next slide. Root parameters you already saw in code. uh, so imagine our products. We don't want to create a separate root for every product. We don't want slash products slash 101 slash products slash 102 and so on. So instead we define our dynamic route products slash colon id. The colon tells React Router that id is a dynamic parameter. Then inside our product details component, we use perms. When the user visits slash products slash 101, the value of id becomes 101. When they visit 202, it becomes 202. So this allows one component to handle thousands of products. Notice that use param returns the parameters from the URL, and because URL parameters are strings, if my product IDs are numbers, I convert the value using number ID before comparing it with my product data. And now move to next slide where we will be discussing query parameters. So route parameters and query parameters solve slightly different problems. Route parameter identifies a particular resource. Example slash product slash 101 clearly identifies products 101. Query parameters are useful for describing option around a page. Example products uh, might be we want to pass custom parameters. So here we are still on the products page. So but we are telling the application that we want for example I passed slash products question mark category is equal to laptop and page is equal to 2, so something like it which you are seeing in the ppt. So React Router provides use search parameter perms to work with these values, and in my demo I'm going to use query parameters to filter products. So when we click the budget button, I'm going to update the URL rather than storing that filter only inside component state. So that's useful because the URL becomes shareable and bookmarkable. So next, let's discuss about some nested routes and layouts. So imagine our dashboard. The dashboard might have an overview page, an order page, and a setting page. Look on the code and let's understand. Now what but all of these pages share the same dashboard layout. We don't want to duplicate the sidebar and navigation on every page. Instead we create a parent route called dashboard, then we define child routes under it. So we might have dashboard slash orders, dashboard slash settings. The parent component provides the shared layout, while the child component provides the changing content. So this is one of the reason nested route is so powerful for a large enterprises application or any application. So let's move to slide 11th where I will be discussing about outlet. So let's assume if dashboard layout contains the sidebar and the main area where exactly should the child route appear. That's a job of outlet. So let's look at our code. We have our sidebar and then inside the main content area we have outlet. I will show you code. You can look on it how I have created this component dashboard layout. So they are just all the components I created these components in a one page for now, so I can explain you the routing. Otherwise when we are working in a large application there should be separate file for each of the components, so that will be a good practice. But because right now I just want to explain you the scenario of routing, so that's why I put each component in one page. So let's look when we are on dashboard orders, the order component appears inside the outlet. When we are on dashboard setting, the setting component appears in exactly the same place. So this gives us a very clear separation between shared layout and page specific content. So now 404, that's an important concept, and I have created a route for it as well, and there is a slide as well here to explain. So let's assume we have an unknown URL. What will happen if the user types slash something that does not exist? We don't want the user to see a completely broken page. React Router allows us to define a catch-all route using with the help of a star. So if you look in code, look on the line number 81, 82. So basically says if none of the previous routes match, render the not found component. This gives us a controlled experience for invalid URLs. And in a production application, our 404 should ideally provide a useful message and clear way back to the application. Now let's talk about protected routes in next slide. Imagine that our dashboard should only be accessible to authenticated user. We don't want an unauthenticated user to simply type slash dashboard into the browser and access private content. We can create a wrapper component such as protected route. In our example, we have an is authenticated variable. If the user isn't authenticated, we ran navigate to login or something. Otherwise, we return the child content. The replace option is useful because we don't necessarily want a protected URL to remain in the browser history after redirecting the user. One important clarification, this example is demonstrating the routing pattern in a real application is authenticated would come from actual authentication state. For example, an authentication provider, context, or state management solution. So let's put everything together in our practical application. I have created a small product application especially for this chapter. So let's start from the top of app.tsx. So first thing you will notice our uh, React imports on the top. So I have imported browser router, routes, router, link and several hooks that will use for more advanced routing. So link handles navigation, use navigate handles programmatic navigation, use perms reads dynamic URL parameters, use search perms works with query parameters, and outlet allows our nested child routes to render inside the parent layout. And now look on my function app. This one, line number 88 to 90. So this is the entry point for our routing system. We wrap our application with browser router. This gives us the component inside our application access to React router's routing context. Then this routes inside app routes. We define our actual route table. So now I will look on this one. So here's we have three important routes. The first renders home component, the second renders products component, and the third is dynamic. The colon ID means that the route can represent any product ID. So I will show you UI as well. What happened here? It is not loading. React router 7, line number 7. Let me try loading import. Yeah, it should. Failed to resolve import reactor router DOM. Does that file exist? React router DOM is already there. So let me stop the recording. Let me fix it. So hi guys. So I'm back. So I just had to restart the server. So that was the only issue. Otherwise, there was no issue. So now we discussed about this routes. So let's look on the demo. This is a home page, products, dashboard. As you can see in the code as well, which I have defined. I will close unnecessary files. So we focus on what is done. Home. I clicked on home. So when I clicked on home, so this part opened, this component function home. Welcome to our React 19 routing demo. And if I clicked on products, you see products list is shown. Products and this component. So we have all budget, link, etc. I clicked on it. Specific products is now you see in the URL products and the ID, and this is just a dashboard. So before we finish, let's summarize some practical routing guidelines. So use link or nav link when navigation is initiated by the user. Use useNavigate when navigation is a part of application logic. Use route parameters when you need to identify a specific resource. Use query parameters for filters, search, sorting, pagination. Use nested routes when multiple pages share a common layout. Always provides a useful 404 page. And finally, protect sensitive routes using real authentication state. One thing I want to emphasize is that routing isn't just a technical implementation detail. Good drive routing creates a predictable navigation experience for the user and maintainable structure for the development team. So let's recap finally. This is the last slide of this chapter. So we started with the fundamentals of React Router. We learned how browser router routes and route work together. We learned how to navigate using link and use navigate. We learned how dynamic parameters work with use perms. We explored query parameters using use search perms. Then we moved into more advanced concepts such as nested routes, layout, and outlet. We also implemented a 404 route and looked at the pattern for protected routes. The most important mental model to remember is this: the URL represents where the user is, the router matches that URL, and the matching route determines what React renders. So once we understand that relationship, React Router becomes much easier to work with. In the next chapter, we will continue improving the architecture of React application and start focusing on reusable components and reusable logic. Thank you for watching and we'll see you in next chapter.